I don't want me on there.
Fuck. Really, I'm sorry. You don't know how
We're
to do
gonna
it.
have Betty Tate,
Oh, that bitch again.
Hartston, and Carrie Hackett from
and for Barb. 5 years after moving here, Barb passed away. As sad as that must have been for everyone. Difficult times indeed, but he approached it with the same level-headed, dedicated manner with which he approached so many other parts of his life. As a single dad, with the help from friends and family, and particularly his sister Shannon, Russ was able to keep working and advancing in his career. And I'm only half done, so just bear with me. There's this history that Yolanda wanted you to hear. He took on acting manager at positions and eventually ended up becoming the manager of the Coast Guard station. As his kids got older and more independent, Russ started to get out into the community. And he got involved in some local volunteer work and committees. It was then that he realized the passion he had for both the town of Comox and helping others. This led him to return for council to run for council for the first time in 2008. Shortly after Russ elected to Comox Council, he met his beautiful Yolanda through a friend. It was an instant connection for the both of them. And once they got together, his house became a home. The fact that they were able to successfully navigate a kitchen renovation early in their relationship is proof that they were meant to be. He adored her and her girls, Hope, Drew, and Paige. Having them join his family could not have made him more happy nor more proud. A self-professed tinkler, he liked gadgets, he fixed things, but was never one to think about design or decor. With Yolanda's guidance, he actually started to like doing renovations to his place, and it became a cozy oasis that they look forward to getting old together. And then there was his yard. I don't know how many times I've been over there. His yard, I got to tell you about this. One thing about Russ, he loved his yard. Or more specifically, he loved his lawn. Maybe it's a prairie thing, but he was very proud of his lawn. Obsessed might be a better word. In fact, if you looked into the backyard, there were times when you could see him and Yolanda out there on their hands and knees, pulling out weeds with forks. Seriously, Yolanda, that lawn was a big deal to him, wasn't it? The fact that Yolanda convinced him to actually put in some plants and did some landscaping shows just how much he loved her. And being a gadget guy, he loved his sailboat. He took pleasure in fixing it up. MacGyvering projects for him was just something he just loved to do, adding improvements here and there, just as much as he loved the freedom and peace that brought him. Being able to get out onto the water, cruise around the harbor on a warm Sunday afternoon. Sorry, on a summer afternoon. He was out there all the time. There was nothing like it. Russ continued as a counselor and supported by his wonderful Yolanda. He eventually became mayor. One of the best we've ever had, as well as Paul Hives. Unfortunately, his dream was carrying on another term, not to be. Other than knowing he wouldn't be able to be there for Yolanda, his kids, his grandkids, Russ didn't have any regrets. He achieved a lot over his life. He was a federal public servant for 35 years, 26 years with the Coast Guard until the office closed, then 9 as a CFB Comox housing manager. He spent more than 11 years on Comox Council. He volunteered on many different boards and with various organizations such as the Community Justice Center, Desiree Senior Center, Comox Valley Economic Development Society, the Marina Enhancement Committee, and the Valley's Environmental Council, and the Comox Business Improvement Association. He was amazing with that, like Councillor Ken was over the years. His commitment to making difference in the lives of those around us was unwavering. He truly believed that working together, we could make our community a better place for all. He brought a thoughtful organization and a pragmatic, some might say, no bullshit. I don't know how many times I heard that. Approach to the job as passion for helping people was contagious and inspired countless others to get involved and make a difference. Russ was a person who wanted to help everyone, and he always made time to sit and listen. We will miss his wisdom, his laughter. He had a sense of humor like no one else. This is incredible. I just can't get over some of the times he would start into a joke. Even though he could barely get a punchline before dissolving into laughter, he started laughing, like just, you know, it was that kind of infectious kind of personality he had. But his spirit will live on in the hearts of those who knew him and his countless lives. He touched through community service. He and Yolanda loved to walk in the evenings around the town, and especially around the waterfront. It wasn't often that he could go out with running into friends and conversations along the way. And when you walk around the town of Comox, know that Russ's stamp is everywhere, from the downtown streets to the pubs, especially the Blackfin, to the marina. There is nothing that Russ, the presence is not felt. And we're better for that. So thank you, Russ, if your spirit is here. But you know, we want this to be not a funeral. It's a celebration of his life. So there we have it. Thank you for listening. So Councillor Grant, you're up.
Well, thank you, Ed. That was very moving tribute to Russ, and Ed got the hard part. I got the easy part. I have to do all the technical things like introducing officials and stuff. So well done, Ed. Thank you for that. But I'd also like to thank you all for coming tonight or this afternoon for this celebration of life for Russ Arnott. I think it's a really nice tribute to have so many people in the room, and I know it means a lot to Yolanda and the family. So thank you for that. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're having this celebration on the traditional territories of the Comox First Nations. We also have a lot of elected officials in the room and dignitaries here today. So I'm not going to introduce them all individually because we only have the room till 5 o'clock, and it's really hard to get an extension on that unless somebody knows somebody. But so today we have Mayor Vicki Brown and members of Cumberland Council. We have Mayor Bob Wells and the Courtney and a bunch of members of Courtney Council, and Bob's actually doing some of the RT work for us today too. So thank you for that. We have Comox Valley Regional District Chair Jesse Kettler and some of the area directors here. We also have Mayor Nicole Minions and Comox Council, who were your ushers here today. And we have representation from Comox First Nations Council as well. We also have MLA Rona Ray Leonard is here, CFB Comox Wing Commander Colonel JP Gagnon, Chief Warrant Officer Don Farr, former Comox Mayor Paul Ives, and we have Chief Gord Schreiner and a large contingency from our Comox Fire Department, as you can see over on the side here, and many, many staff from the town of Comox. So we just really want to thank you all for coming. And I'll pass it back to Ed, or do you want me to introduce speaker? Okay, so we're going to start with the speakers now. And the first speaker is Dave Postal. So Dave served as the pastor for the Comox Pentecostal Church for 20 years. After he retired, he became the chaplain at the town of Comox. Through this time, Dave got to know Russ on a deeply personal level and would like to share some of his thoughts about Russ today. So Dave.
Thank you, Ken and Ed, for your opening comments today. And as we begin, first of all, I just want to extend our love to Yolanda and all of her family. Our hearts and our prayers are with you as you are continuing to navigate this season of grief and loss. I also want to just acknowledge the fact that Russ's mother is with us online today, and perhaps some others as well. And we extend that same love and compassion to you as well. Scripture says that there's a time to laugh and a time to mourn. And I know there are many stories in this room today that would reflect both laughter, but also that sense of sadness and losing a good friend in Russ. Part of our healing and our wholeness comes out of sharing both laughter and sorrow, grief and joy. It's interesting to note that both of those emotions, joy and grief, are actually a gift from God. Scripture also says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." And that's something that we can hope in. And so today, as I, for a moment or two, reflect on Russ's life, I am thankful for the way that Russ trusted and he invited me into his world, into his inner world. And from the very first time that I met Russ, it wasn't long before I discovered, like many of you, his kindness and his compassion for others, his humanity and his authentic love for his family was very real and genuine. I will never forget the words of his son, Ben, one day when he shared with me. He said, "Our dad is a legend. We've gone through a lot together and he's always been there for us." And I thought, what a great tribute. I'm sure it reflects his family today. Over the last number of months, Russ and I experienced many deep and meaningful conversations together. I was impressed with his courage, how he opened his heart, wanting to talk about not just roads and budgets, but he wanted to talk about life. He wanted to talk about things that really mattered. He wanted to talk about his family. He wanted to talk about hope. We got to talk about eternity and all of these things that are the deep part of the fabric of our lives. We shared stories together. Some of my favorite stories came out of Russ's career with the Canadian Coast Guard. Stories that included search and rescue and responding to ships in distress, their maydays, and how that every human life mattered and was worthy of our best efforts and to be rescued. And we talked about how God hears our maydays and how he hears the cries of our hearts, and that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. There's so much that I could say today. We had many hours together. But let me finish with one last thing that Russ shared with me and his family. And it was a picture of a nourishing tree. And I know that many of you were sitting there when we heard his story. It was a picture of a nurse log, a picture of new life coming out of what has died. And living here, we're blessed living here on Vancouver Island, and maybe Russ was drawn to the many trees, the fallen trees in the forest. Like Russ, I came from Manitoba, and so I have a special fondness for the forest that we all enjoy today. But in the forest, we often see where a tree has fallen and death is obvious, and yet new life is exploding everywhere. And as Russ shared with us, he pointed out the window to an old stump with a young tree that was growing up beside it. And he said with enthusiasm in his voice, he said, "There it is." And then he laughed and he chuckled and he looked at me and he said, "Dave," he said, "you can use that in my service." And he said, "I know you can do something with that." And, you know, I've had some time to think about that. I've had some time to ponder that picture that was in Russ's heart and soul that day. And I realized that the good news is that we see this picture of life coming out of death over and over again. We see it both in the laws of nature. We see it in the laws of God. We see loss and death being overcome with new life and renewal. Just thinking even of Yolanda and just the celebration of a new baby coming into their family. It's again a picture to us of new life. And the interesting thing is, the good news is that God never wastes a hurt. And so together, as we reflect on Russ's life, I know that his hope was that his life and his legacy would continue to nourish new life and hope in all of us. And I know that all of us, many of us have stories today that include the many ways that Russ touched your life, like he touched mine. And my encouragement to you this afternoon is that his life would continue to nourish and inspire new life and meaning and purpose in your life. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for the opportunity, for being able to share a few words. And I look forward to what others will have to say today as well. And just want to say God bless you all.
Okay, now we have Hope, Drew, and Paige. We're not sure who will speak. They will start with one, and pass it to the other, but all three of them, I'm vote you up right now.
I'm going first. I'm gonna do my best. I'm probably not gonna look up much, but
Okay, it's
I can do it. Russ, Dad, Papa, Grandpa. Someone who so proudly went by it all. Russ was an incredibly big part of my life journey. He was always, without a doubt, there to lend a hand, words of wisdom and encouragement, and almost always a joke to make light of things. Russ never batted an eye about being there in any way he could be. This went for anyone and everyone, and he was passionate about anything he devoted even a thought to. I am so proud and grateful to have had the opportunity to be in Russ and his children's lives, and even more proud that my children had the honor of having him for a papa. Russ, you will be missed beyond measure. Thank you for being an incredible rock and role model, and for loving my mom, myself, and my children unconditionally. The amount of people in this room alone speaks volumes to just how many lives Russ has touched with his presence. So thank you for being here and for making Russ's life so meaningful.
My family and I flew into Comox from Edmonton on Friday night, and it's the first time we have visited since Russ's passing. As we approached the house, through the door and up the stairs, Russ was not there, sitting in his chair with his book in his hand and his welcoming smile and warm, strong hugs. It felt empty and strange, and that's when it really all hit me that he's actually gone. Russ and I didn't always see eye to eye, but no matter what differences we had or what I was going through in my life, Russ was always there for me when I needed him. He always welcomed me into his home, treating me like his daughter. Russ was always there to support me and lend his fatherly wisdom, whatever the situation. And I believe that alongside of his sense of humor is what we all love so dearly about him, his heart. Russ's love and kindness and compassion was unmatched, and he'll truly be missed.
Firstly, thank you to everybody who is here today. It's an incredible reminder that Russ has left an unimaginable mark on this town, on life, on everybody who has had the chance to meet him. Russ had been a part of my life since I was about 9 years old, and I am so grateful for the time that I got to spend with him. He may have been the mayor, which that alone is something to be remembered by. But personally, and I think many will agree, will remember him for his character, his ability to lighten any room with his humor and his sarcasm. I'll remember the ways that he supported and encouraged me in everything that I did. I'll remember the way that he brought my mom true happiness and vice versa. How welcomed he made anybody feel, and the way that everything he did was out of pure good intentions to help. All Russ ever wanted was to bring people together, whether that was community, friends, or family. He loved being surrounded by the people that he cared about and would never miss an opportunity for it. With Russ gone, there will forever be a hole in a lot of people's lives, including mine. But all that we can do going forward is to celebrate his life and find ways to let him live on through each of us here today. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Rose. That's very difficult to do, and you did a really good job of that. So thank you for that. Our next speaker is Mike Atkins from, so Mike first met Russ in 2016 when he was the base commander and Russ was the housing officer at CFB Comox. So when Mike retired, he became the CEO of the Airport Commission and Russ became the mayor of Comox. Now, Mike has assured me he's not going to talk about parking at Christmas time at the airport today. So we've got that, but he would like to say a few words about Russ. So Mike.
Well, excuse me, I gotta follow that last one. With the crowd. It was an honor to be asked to say a few words about Russ. It's still difficult to believe that he is gone. Well, many here today will have known Russ for much longer than I wanted to tell you take the opportunity to tell you how he became my friend. Seems like just yesterday, we were having a beer at Land and Sea, discussing the airport, parking, his decision to run again for mayor, and just generally solving the problems of the world. Well, mostly those of the Comox Valley. 6 hours later, when I needed a ride home, it became abundantly clear that Russ could drink me under the table. Successfully. It was a fun night and a pivotal moment in our relationship. You see, as I stated, I'd only met Russ in 2016 when I was posted to 19 Wing, and he was the director of the Forces Housing Agency. We met when he briefed me as the incoming wing commander and learned that we had a shared background, as you have heard, Coast Guard. Myself, for those that know me, they know I'm passionate about my previous life in search and rescue, and including my time at the Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax, where I worked alongside the Coast Guard. With Russ's time there, we often shared stories of SAR cases, the tragic, the life-threatening, the heroic, the strange, and the hilarious. Stories that can only be understood and shared between those that have lived them. In his cave of an office at the Canics, you really can put some lights in there. Or events at the officers' mess with Yolanda, a friendship was born. When the airport announced my hiring as CEO, Russ was the first to reach out and congratulate me, and was my first official outreach when I assumed the job when he introduced me to the new CAO, Jordan. Despite his job and even more demanding role as mayor, he always had time to help me understand the intricacies of the valley. A quick text, a phone call, or a beer, or 6, and he would fill me in on whatever situation I was trying to understand. After a nomadic military career, I was looking forward to putting down roots and to renewing our friendship, one that was cut off far too soon. Russ dedicated his life to public service, and for that he earned my utmost respect. I am proud to have called him my friend. To Yolanda and the entire Arnott family, my deepest condolences. I can't imagine what you are going through, but I know how much he loved you, and I know that he is in heaven watching over you. I miss my friend.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. The next one. Sorry. Sue Wood. After a 30-year career in broadcasting, Sue Wood and John Mang retired in Comox. Since arriving in the Valley in 2011, Sue has embraced a busy lifestyle. She currently is the marketing media manager for the Vancouver Island Music Fest, past executive director for the Comox Downtown Business Association, which she did an amazing job, past producer of the Comox Nautical Days Festival. She and John perform the musical duo, Hey Honey. Sue Wood.
Well, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this today. I first met Russ during Nautical Days. The first time I met Russ was also the very first time I met Yolanda. It was a hot August long weekend, and John and I had just taken over the production of Nautical Days. And we'd introduced the idea of having a number of nonprofit organizations and members of the Comox Council host the information booth throughout the weekend. Ken Grant and Marg Grant had just finished their shift, and then I was in the booth waiting for the next counselor to come for his shift. It was to start at 2 o'clock. At about 2:20, a gentleman sporting a good week's worth of stubble and wearing a well-weathered Hawaiian shirt came into the booth, and I said, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" He said, "Yes, I'm Russ. I'm here to host the booth." I said, "You're late by 20 minutes. Yes, I was charming. And he said, "I know, we were in Henry. We were lucky we got here at all." And I said, actually yelled, because the junior rock band had just taken the stage and they were doing their best tribute to Def Leppard, and all volumes on 11. So I yelled, "Where's Rwanda?" And he went, "What?" I said, "You're on the list to host the booth with Rwanda." And he looked at me like I'd lost my mind and said, "Not Rwanda, Yolanda." And I went, "Oh, sorry, the list says Rwanda." And I said, "So where is Yolanda?" And he said, "Oh, she's coming," and gestured with his chin in the direction of the arrival of Yolanda. And in almost a Spielbergian movie moment, as I looked across the park, the clouds broke through, the sun shone down, the crowd parted, and this long-legged, flaxen-haired, tanned beauty was striding in what I thought was slow motion across the park. I looked back at Russ, who looked more like a roadie for Def Leppard, then a city councilor that day, and I leaned in so he could hear me over the band and said, well, you're punching above your weight class, aren't you? That lumpy beginning that lumpy day was the beginning of a very trusted and important relationship. Over the next decade, Russ and I worked together on many different town of Comox initiatives, the BIA projects, and we sat on several boards together. We'd meet to work out details or come up with a plan, and pretty much the first thing Russ would say is, Yolanda and I were talking and we think, or I was talking to Yolanda and she had a really good idea. Over the years, the three of us shared several very productive, spontaneous Friday night planning meetings at the Black Bin, and one very memorable Friday night backstage at Music Fest, where we pretty much solved all the problems of Comox Valley. Sadly, no one wrote them down, so that was the end of that. A few years ago at the Comox Halloween event, Russ and I were standing on the corner of Port Augusta and Comox Avenue, having just helped a little group of kids dressed as pirates cross the street. Maybe it was that gang of little rowdy pirates that reminded him of that first lumpy meeting at Nautical Days. That day when I was all buttoned down and by the numbers and Russ was all unbuttoned and Jimmy Buffett. He took a hard look at me and put his hand on my shoulder with a really genuine look on his face and said, you know, Sue, when I first met you, I didn't like you. But I get you now. I said, thanks, Russ. I know. I get you now too. What I grew to understand over those years was that Russ Arnott was a very unconventional guy doing a very conventional job in an unconventional way. He loved his job and he loved his town and he loved his. It was a privilege to work with him and a privilege to know him. Thank you.
So just want everybody to know that Sue actually was the one that made the program up with Rwanda on it. So it was her own fault. Our next speaker is Dave Proctor. So Dave Proctor and Janine Martin have known Russ since his days back in the Coast Guard, and they became good friends of Russ and Yolanda's. Dave would like to share some of his memories of their friendship. And unfortunately, Janine couldn't make it. So Dave, you're up.
It's really great to see so many people out to honor such a great man. I'm great. We're all here. We're deeply saddened to hear about the passing of Russ Arnott, our dear friend, a remarkable human being. As the former mayor of Comox, Russ's passion for his position was apparent in everything he did. He was also madly in love with his wife, Yolanda, and cherished their 5 children. I had the privilege of meeting Russ many years ago when he was an alderman. We quickly bonded over our shared love for the water. We spent countless hours exploring Desolation Sound and other remote areas. And we also enjoyed celebrating New Year's Eve at Mount Washington. We taught Russ how to savor a bottle of champagne, and he was addicted. And he was pretty good at it. One of the fondest memories I have with Russ was a boat trip we took coming through the Gulf Islands, bringing a boat back from Victoria. Boat had AIS on it. And all of a sudden, hailing over the speaker from the Queen of Cowichan, that's the ferry that runs between Sydney and Tsawwassen. And we basically requesting us to turn to the starboard side. Both Russ and I turned out and looked to the right to see what was on the port side. And as close as I've ever come to a BC ferry was right beside us. We were startled, and Russ's calm demeanor and quick thinking, we quickly changed course. We had to pick up a few dishes and a few pots and pans that were all over the place, but it was quite an experience. Just a few days before Russ's passing, and Ed alluded to this, we had met at the hospice, and we were all together having, it's difficult for me spending time with somebody when they plan on leaving. They predetermined the time that I've never experienced before, and it was different. Both Janine and I asked Russ a question, and we asked him for words of advice, looking back on his life, what would be the words of advice he could give us? Russ looked at us and looked at the wall and ceiling, took a bite of his hamburger. And he thought about it. It didn't come out really quick. He really put a lot of thought into it. And he said, Dave, Janine, be kind. This simple yet powerful statement is a reflection of Russ's genuine, thoughtful personality. Today we mourn Russ's passing. Let us honor his memory by taking his advice and striving to be kind to one another. Russ lived his life with kindness, compassion, and we can learn from his example. Our deepest condolences for me and Janine go out to Yolanda and the family. He was a great man, and he's going to be greatly missed.
Well, this is going to be an interesting presentation. Tony and Dawn, I met them a few times, and they sent out a script, and Yolanda sent it to me, and I just, oh my gosh, there's a lot there, but oh my gosh, there's some funny things that have happened that Russ used to do. And we're thinking, we have to get this. We have to do it somehow. And what we decided on was through a video. And this video is hilarious, that Russ had a side to him and a personality that will come out right now.
Well, I think we should congratulate the IT crew. I think that's the first Zoom thing I've ever done that actually worked properly. So well done, guys. Next, we have Mayor Nicole Minions. Nicole met Russ about 5 years ago as a town of Comox councillor, and as the current mayor of Comox, she'd like to come and say a few words on behalf of the town.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the town of Comox, I sincerely want to thank Russ's good friend Ed, Councillor Ken Grant, Yolanda, and all the staff for making come together as well as it has. I know that Russ would have been really touched by all of what's been said today, as well as people that have come and shared some of their stories. So for those who took time to plan today, and to all of you who have come today, I know that it would have meant so much to all of our friend Russ. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming and making this come together. To Yolanda, to Ben, Jessica, Hope, Faith, and Drew, I sincerely want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to stand here today, but also for the 11 years of service that Russ gave to the town of Comox. I know that weighs a lot on families, and I just want to thank you for sharing your beloved family member with the town of Comox. It's something that we will always remember. So thank you so much. Something I think that some of the other mayors, MLA, councillors in town can attest to is, at the will of the public, we get put together on a council or a board, and every week for 4 years, we get to come together. And it's almost like a club or a family where we really get to know, without meeting each other's families very often, a big part of their life. We share stories of what his kids and grandchildren were doing. And 95% of the time, we're a pretty functional family, and we really get to be a part of each other's stories. So again, thank you for sharing Russ with us in that way. And throughout the years, I knew Russ, unfortunately, only for about 4 or 5 years, not as long as many of you. He shared some really good lessons week after week about, often it wasn't about council policies, but we talked about family, the importance of how proud he felt of his own family, how proud he really was of this community. He was proud at the Coast Guard and proud when he worked down at CFB in his housing role. So he carried a lot of pride for the people around him. It wasn't that he was the mayor. It wasn't that he was on city council. It was pride in the people and the community and town that he lived in. And he really shared that value week after week over those 4 or 5 years with us. There's a couple stories that I just really wanted to quickly share. There was a Christmas a couple years ago where Russ and his family, Yolanda, were having Christmas dinner. And I know that someone needed a place to be that night. And he made sure that he made his table longer when other people probably wouldn't even have seen that opportunity to share his family and his home. And I think his door was always open to anyone in the community, which you saw from passing him on the street when he was walking or on his scooter with his shorts and sandals, which I sincerely have missed seeing over the last 3 months. So his ability to be kind to anyone he came across, whether he was just walking, downtown Comox, he was that friendly face that he really welcomed anyone and everyone that he saw. So his kindness shone through time and time again. And I think that is a value that we should all be able to carry through from him. The other thing he spoke about, and I will say probably more in the last 6 to 12 months, was just having a passion for life. He was passionate about sailing. He was passionate about his family. He was passionate when he fought for the beach fires down in Goosepit. He lived his life with a lot of passion. And again, I like what Sue Wood said about just not the conventional way. It was what he really truly cared about. And it never came back to that it was a position or part of the job. It was really about people and the individual people and the individual things he was passionate about. And he really stressed not to wait. Don't wait for that sailing trip or that vacation, that just life was right in front of you, and to really take it and make every day count in that way. So he really brought a lot of lessons about not taking yourself too seriously. When you disagreed on something, he never held a grudge, and he really held that through every day of the 4 or 5 years that I knew him. It was all about making other people feel better and being kind. So that was something that I really learned from him. And while I thank his family and I thank all the people that made today happen, I also have to thank him for the very big shoes he left me and our current council in continuing on and the legacy that he has left. So I'm very grateful for the time I had with him. And I thank you all for being here today. I think this community event would have meant a lot to him, and he would have wanted us to go and have a really good afternoon and evening together and just make all the conversations we share with people count. So thank you again for coming today, and cheers to the man that Russ was and for his family for sharing him with us. Thank you.
So the next speaker and the last of the speakers is Dr. Bill Taves. He, not yet, can you just sit down for a minute? I haven't done your bio yet. Bill is, please come on. He is an amazing dentist here in Comox. He loves our community. He just can't say enough about all the people that live here. And he's got so much compassion as a human being, the love and affection. And what he was showing Russ in his latter days was just unbelievable. Russ said to me, do you think Bill do you think he's sincere about what he's saying to me? And I says, absolutely. He says it to me every day. So you have got an amazing way with people, Bill. And for the last bit, you visited him, you were there for him, and it's been amazing what you're doing for this fellow. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here as well. And I didn't know it would be my best day of my life when it's all about me. And thank you, Ed. Thank you, Yolanda, and your family for allowing me to speak at this event. I think it's one of the most challenging days a family ever undergoes. And we as a community feel the sorrow and the loss of Russ. We also are selfishly thinking about what he's lost means to us. He was a guiding light for me when I tried to be help with our business community. He helped me as a friend and as a person to speak kindly and to look at each event from all sides to become a fair and guided person. Russ just was amazing as a mentor for myself and for our group in the business association that we were working with. Now, I think I should back up and just say what I've heard today is I've heard about Russ the husband and Russ the father and Russ the grandfather, Russ the friend, Russ the community member, Russ the colleague, Russ the civil servant, and most recently, Russ the mayor. And in all those duties and all those privileges, he was amazing. And I kind of thought back and thought about the process of a person with gifted capabilities and gifted initiative and amazing drive, what they become. And I think they become a person like Russ. And what I notice about people like Russ is they usually have a very significant success rate. And their success rate in our society is often financial and money driven. And so those successful people, when they pass on or when they live, they become philanthropic. Is that the right pronunciation? They become philanthropists. And when I think of Russ the philanthropist. I think Russ gave us all the largest gift of all, and that was himself. He gave each and every one of us a way to live that is honest, it's sincere, it's based on kindness, it's based on love, and it's based on being real. He was a real person who shared unequivocally, honestly with all of us. I think when I think of him as a philanthropist, I think of him as not one of those guys that gave the big dollar donations. We know the Filbert family, we know the Aiken family, we know the recent Mears family estate on 40 acres that was given to our community. And those are amazing. They help our foundation, they help everything. But at the same time, there's the human equivalent of that. And Russ gave us the human equivalent of wealth, of things that make a community worth being in, what makes it livable. And so for that, I thank you, Russ, and I really appreciate what you've done for us. I want to also remember that he never wavered from the prime purpose. His prime purpose, in my opinion, was his drive to do something good, to help anyone in need, to learn and evaluate an issue and then fairly and kindly give advice on how to manage that issue, to be honest and sincere in all that he ever did. I think that comes from his training as a Coast Guard officer and then later with the military. And so today, that's why I was very humbled to see our fire department and the men in uniform here today, because they symbolize, they epitomize what Russ's life was committed to. And so we thank you for supporting Russ, for supporting us, and for being kind to us, like Russ has done his whole career. I want to also, my point is that Russ has given us the benefit of, to all of us, the benefit of himself, the biggest gift that anyone can give. And, you know, he was taken early, he was taken quickly. But during that time, those end times, he was so brave and so understanding and so calm. And I would often leave his home and think, will I be able to be as brave and as calm and as kind when I have that to look at, to make those decisions? How can I leave everything I love and be kind to those around me that are crying that are sad and that are lonely for him. And I hope and pray that what I learned from my time with Russ is that I too can be better. And you and I can make a difference in Russ's name by living each day with Russ here. I want to thank Russ for creating a town, a community, a place that's safe, a place that's wonderful to raise our family, a place where we're happy to say hello, where we take a moment to help somebody that hasn't got it as good as us. And for that, Russ, I want to be more like Russ. I want to be like you, Russ, and I hope I live a long life and can share your ideas and your thoughts and your emotions and your prayer. And thank you, family, for sharing Russ with us. It was a pleasure to have him as a friend, as a mayor, as a colleague, as a person. Thank you so much for sharing him with us. Sincerely.
So now, sorry, so now we have a presentation that we're going to make. And I'd like to call up Mayor Nicole, council members, and the council members, the two council members that work with Russ as mayor. If you could come up on the stage, we'd like to do a presentation, please.
Yolanda, if you wouldn't mind coming up here. Right in front of you. So on behalf of the town of Comox, we just want to give Russ's gavel to you and your family, just to thank you again for his 4 years service as mayor and 11 years service with the town of Comox, and just have something to realize just how significant his contribution was to us. So, thank you.
Yeah, that's that.
We have so many people to thank. Jordan Wall, with all his staff, too many, have been away, and he has looked after detail after detail. We are so fortunate to have Jordan as our CAO, and he's done an amazing job. And then, of course, Mayor Bob Wells with the technical side and that whole crew. You know, it's just been amazing what you've done here. And streaming it and everything. What an incredible task, and you went up for it. Carson, my son, with the PowerPoint, it was amazing, all those photos. And working with Yolanda was a challenge, wasn't it? No. So I know, I got to tell you this story. I was in Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, and I phoned or text Yolanda, and I says, you know, we need to wrap the service somehow. What would you think about us asking Anella to do a couple songs? And she said, I think that would be wonderful. So here I am, I'm in Hawaii, I'm sitting at this restaurant and I can recognize this voice, but I don't know who it is. And then I finally clued and I tapped him on the shoulder and it was Anella. So you talk about Russ's spirit being out there. Somehow that was meant to happen. So I said, Anella, of course, we went crazy. And, you know, he was with some friends and the one fellow that owned several restaurants over in Hawaii, and Anella worked for him starting at 17 years old. And that was an amazing evening. And then I run into that couple again. And I said, Anella, would you mind? And he says, I would just love and I would be honored to do it. So I asked Yolanda, what would be the songs that you would like to pick? So she picked the two. First of all, Imagine by John Lennon. And then the last one of the two, Over the Rainbow. And this will close our service out today. And thank you, all of you, for coming. I'm sorry the gentleman over there had to stand the whole time, but how proud are we of them in this community? Okay.
Aloha, everybody. Thank you for coming. And what Ed said is true. You know, Russ has a big reason why I'm here today, because when we met, it was amazing because I didn't know he was sitting next to me. And I was telling my friend, Pete, that you got to come to Comox. And when you come to Comox, we're going to take you to the Blackfin. And we're gonna go down and have a good time. They got good food and everything, Pete, man. You gotta. Then I go to the bathroom. I'm coming back, and who's sitting next to me? Ed. And I'm like, well, Ross. You know, he used to always come to the grind, Comox grind, and I used to be upstairs, and I would sing for them from my balcony. So here's one for you, Ross. Two for you, as we say in Hawaii, aloha au hui ho, which means till we meet again. Imagine there's no it's easy if you try. No help above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for. Imagine no more country. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill, die for. No job to. Imagine all the people living life in peace. Yeah, but I'm not the only one. I want something just, yeah. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you no. Yeah, brother. Yeah, we are. Say I'm a dreamer. Yeah, but I'm not the only one. Yeah, I hope someday you just, yeah, you will. Everyone remembers why. There's one more for us. Some once in a while, the night. So skies are blue. And the dreams I did to dreams will do for you. Someday I'm supposed to star. I wake up and the clouds are above me high. I ain't about the chimney top, that's where. Fire me. So fly over I see trees of green and too. I see them before. And I say to myself, oh, yeah, I see skies of blue. Clouds of white, the brightness of day. Can I say to myself, oh, wonderful, wonderful world. Oh, the colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky. Also on the faces of the people passing by, I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're saying, I hope you crying, watching it's more than I'll ever know. I say to myself, "Ooh, what a wonderful, wonderful awesome world of there's a land of my love once in a land goodbye. I We love you, Russ. Aloha.
Anella, that was amazing, Anella. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Hold that close one to you. I love them. Thanks.
Good job. Pull that off pretty good. Well. Timing, because we're 20 guys. Excuse me. Could you not have done a better job? Wonderful.
Thanks.
See you over there.
I think that all works. On the beach fires. I think you got the message. Yeah, we're in. Yeah, nice, yeah, so that.
Oh, would you give me a hug? Thank you.